Great, I think we can start. Welcome everyone, thanks for being here. Our mayor is attending remote, so I'm going to be the in-person chair of this meeting. Thank you for being here and sharing your input with us. We are going to have a great meeting and we learn from you. City Clerk, can you please do a roll call?
Thank you. Mayor Robinson. Deputy Mayor Malakutian.
Here.
Councilmember Bhargava.
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Neuenhouse.
Here.
And Councilmember Sumadoria. Thank you.
Councilmember Lee, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
Thank you. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have two proclamations. The first one is Black Business Month proclamation. Council Member Sumadeveria, would you please read this proclamation?
Perfect. Whereas August is recognized nationally as Black Business Month, a time to honor and celebrate the contributions of Black-owned businesses and entrepreneurs whose innovation, leadership, and resilience strengthen local economies and communities across the country. And whereas Black-owned businesses are an essential part of Bellevue's vibrant and diverse economy, enriching the city's culture, creating jobs, and serving as engines of opportunity and equity. And whereas, despite persistent disparities in access to capital, resources, and market opportunities, Black entrepreneurs continue to build successful businesses and demonstrate extraordinary resilience and leadership. And whereas, the City of Bellevue is committed to advancing racial equity and economic inclusion and recognizes that supporting Black-owned businesses is critical to fostering a thriving and equitable community. And whereas organizations and initiatives throughout Bellevue, including local chambers, economic development programs, and community partners, are working to supporting Black-owned businesses through access to funding, technical assistance, mentorship, and visibility. And whereas celebrating Black Business Month provides an opportunity to elevate the voices, stories, and impact of Black entrepreneurs and to encourage residents, institutions, and businesses to support Black-owned enterprises year-round. Now, therefore, I, Claire Sumadeveria, in behalf of Lynn Robinson, Mayor of City of Bellevue, Washington, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim August 2025 as Black Business Month in Bellevue, Washington, and encourage all residents to support Black-owned businesses, celebrating their contribution to our community and work toward a more inclusive and equitable economy for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Sumadeveria. We have Tone Austin, Bellevue Diversity Advisory Network Chair and local business owner. Please come, and we are all listening to you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and City Manager. My name is Anthony Austin. I have lived in Bellevue for 8 years doing small business work in strategy. And on behalf of this niche market, we'd like to thank you for acknowledging Black and brown business owners in Bellevue.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We will take a picture after the second proclamation, so please hang out here. Our second proclamation is International Overdose Awareness Day, and Councilmember Bhargava is going to read that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right. Whereas International Overdose Awareness Day is recognized globally on August 31st as an opportunity to remember those we have lost to overdose, support those left behind, and take action to prevent further loss of life. And whereas drug overdoses continue to impact families, neighborhoods, and communities across Washington state, including right here in Bellevue, where fentanyl and other synthetic opioids have sharply increased the risk of unintentional overdose, and whereas the stigma associated with substance abuse disorders prevents too many people from seeking the help they need, and perpetuates silence, isolation, and shame among individuals, families, and survivors. And whereas harm reduction strategies, including access to naloxone overdose, did I get that right? Okay. Overdose education and supportive services are critical tools in saving lives and providing pathways to treatment and recovery. And whereas local organizations, first responders, healthcare workers, and peer recovery specialists play a vital role in addressing overdose crisis with compassion, urgency, and care. And whereas the City of Bellevue is committed to promoting public health, equity, and the safety of all residents, especially our most vulnerable, and stands with communities working to prevent overdoses and support healing. Now, therefore, I, Vishal Bhargava, on behalf of Mayor Lynn Robinson for the City of Bellevue, Washington, and on behalf of the entire City Council, hereby proclaim August 31st, 2025 as the International Overdose Awareness Day in Bellevue, and encourage all residents to help raise awareness, reduce stigma, and support evidence-based solutions that prevent overdose and saves lives.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Bhargava. We have here Billy Allen from Crisis Response Social Worker, Bellevue Fire Cares. Please all come, let us know what your input is, and then we take a picture with you guys.
Good evening, Mayor Robinson and council members. Thank you for recognizing International Overdose Awareness Day. I'm honored to accept this proclamation on behalf of the Bellevue Fire Cares team, our partners, and most importantly, the individuals and families impacted by overdose in our community. Overdose is not a moral failing, it's a public health issue. And like any health issue, our response must be rooted in evidence, compassion, and equity. In Bellevue, we're fortunate to have first responders, healthcare workers, and advocates providing life-saving support every day, from distributing naloxone to offering non-judgmental care. We also know there are gaps, especially for residents who need culturally specific services. Through partnerships like ours with the Rwandan Community Association, we're working to close those gaps. Thank you for helping reduce stigma and for supporting this work. Just a reminder for anyone in crisis, help is always available. Just call or text 988.
Can you please tell us your name before we come and take a picture, all of you, please?
My name is Billy Allen.
Diane Swanberg.
Natasha Grossman.
Great, now we can take a picture.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Everyone say aye?
Aye.
Great. There is no one said no, we can move forward. Oral communication, City Clerk, are there any speakers signed up to provide oral communication this evening?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. There are 5 speakers this evening, pre-registered. So at this point, I will go over a few of the rules that the council has in place before I start calling names. The total time for oral communications is for a period of not more than 30 minutes, and all topics must relate to City of Bellevue government. People speaking to items on tonight's agenda will be called first, and then if time remains, people speaking to items not on tonight's agenda will be called. The presiding officer in both of those categories is authorized to give preference to those who have not spoken to council within the last 60 days, or who will be speaking on items that will come in front of the council within the next 60 days. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak, and only 3 speakers are allowed to speak to any one side of a particular topic. An additional reminder is that in compliance with Washington state campaign laws regarding the use of public facilities, no speaker may support or oppose a ballot measure or support or oppose a candidate for election, which includes one's own campaign. Anyone beginning to speak on those topics will be asked to stop. So with that, I will call our first speaker, who is Vic Bishop, who I believe is joining us virtually. Mr. Bishop, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Your time begins now.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak again to you tonight, specifically on the transportation facilities plan recommendations that is on your agenda later. I want to remind you of my mode split chart that I've shown you a number of times, which says that 75+% of all the person trips in the city of Bellevue are in cars. Like 16 or 18% are in pedestrians, 6 or 8% are in transit, and under 1% are on bikes. And where that really comes to in play is how you spend your money, of course, because it's all about budgeting. And here we are with a recommendation for a transportation facilities plan, which is how we're going to spend our money over the next 12 years or more, if depending on how you deal with that, the length of time. And it's just real clear that the 1% of the trips that are in bikes are getting enormous portions of your proposed transportation facilities plan. And I've looked at how many ways you can get a bicycle across I-405, and there are currently 6 ways, and I can't see the clock, so I don't know what my time is.
You have 1 minute, 25 seconds remaining.
Thank you. All right, that's better. Can you set it up so I can see the clock, please? There are 6 ways across 405 for bikes. There's Main Street, there's 4th, there's 8th, there's 12th, there's 10th, and the light rail connection across the freeway. It was just specifically set up to carry bikes. That's 6 crossings you have, a way of getting between downtown and the Bell Red Wilburton side of the freeway. And your proposed transportation facilities plan is dominated by 40 some odd $1 million towards the 7th bike crossing, which is a down payment on a $200 million new bicycle crossing of the 405 corridor, which is totally unfunded. And we have a Wilburton sub-area plan, FEIS, that shows clearly if you grow anywhere near like you expect to, you're going to have multiple intersections that are going to fail. And you're not addressing any of those intersections. I fully just do not understand the thinking of the council. If transportation is a real issue for the city, you need to not fund anything for this Grand Connection bicycle facility
Mr.
across
Bishop?
405.
Mr.
Thank
Bishop,
you.
thank you. Your time has expired. Our next speaker is Christopher Randalls.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, virtually tonight, Deputy Mayor Malakutian, council members, and staff. Chris Randall speaking on behalf of Complete Streets Bellevue, the organization that supports the safety and mobility of all who get around in Bellevue. That's why we founded the Streets Are For Everyone Safe Bellevue campaign, which as of today is a coalition of 17 nonprofit and community-based organizations united in the commitment for urgent action on safe streets and multimodal access. My comments tonight are just on behalf of our organization, but they are informed by the shared value that nobody should be killed or seriously injured just trying to get where they need to go in Bellevue. There is ample research and data showing how increased transit usage reduces vehicle miles traveled, reduces emissions, and improves safety. All things that Bellevue wants to achieve as part of its environmental stewardship and Vision Zero plans. There's also ample evidence that dedicated transit infrastructure, like bus lanes, queue jumps, and better signal timing, can improve ridership. It's because of these data, municipal plans, and values that we are concerned with the removal of the transportation facilities plan projects that would help create faster and more reliable transit in Bellevue. TFP projects 303 through 309 focus on improving transit speed and reliability between several different nodes in Bellevue, and the current draft of the TFP suggested by staff and approved by the Commission would remove these projects, which could preclude their inclusion in future capital improvement plan budgets. Our organization sent a letter this morning outlining our concerns in more detail, so I hope you all have had the chance to review that. To briefly summarize what we're asking this evening, we support staff's approach to not tie dollars to specific projects and to extend the horizon out to 20 years, since this allows us to be more nimble to changing conditions and limited dollars. But a growing city like Bellevue needs to keep transit projects on the table within its own budget, not relying on grants from state and federal agencies that are experiencing the same pressures that Bellevue is, with funds that likely won't materialize. If keeping transit projects in the TFP would have no present fiscal impact, we would urge you to maintain projects TFP 303 through TFP 309 in the final draft so that these projects can remain eligible for city funds as they become available. As the city of Bellevue does not actually provide transit, we do of course have to look to King County Metro and their service and infrastructure planning. But it's important to note that their planning does not happen in a vacuum. If we as a city show that we are willing to prioritize investments in infrastructure with our own programs and projects, that can create opportunities for further collaboration beyond the excellent K-line planning work that was completed earlier this year. Bellevue can choose to be a regional leader in planning for transit infrastructure, bringing KCM along in our work instead of waiting for them to act. But the first step must be keeping these projects whole within the Transportation Facilities Plan. Please amend tonight's TFP to reinsert TFP projects 303 through 309 into our long-range planning so that we have the chance to solidify our commitment to sustainable travel, safe streets, and being a good agency partner. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jody Alberts.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jody Alberts, and I'm Vice President of Government Affairs for the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce, here this evening on behalf of the Bellevue Mobility Coalition, which consists of 20 different organizations within our membership. So following the approval of the comprehensive plan, it's crucial that we, of course, create a transportation system that supports the bold land use vision that Bellevue has set out. This is a pivotal moment to align our infrastructure investments with where and how we expect the city to grow. Our members represent a cross-section of the community, including but not limited to KDC, Wright Runstead, Visit Bellevue, and major employers like Amazon and Symetra. While we represent a diverse interest, we do share a common goal, and that's building a more connected, efficient, and future-ready multimodal network. As part of this TFP cycle, we've submitted a fairly long letter and a long list of projects. These are our current priority projects, and we understand the funding constraints that we have right now. We are supportive of extending it to 20 years in order to fund these. That said, our focus does extend beyond the immediate list. We're working toward a system that reflects how people actually move through the city, offering more choices and better connections. That requires long-term strategy that aligns transportation planning with land use, future demand, and funding realities. That's why the coalition strongly supports the inclusion of the assessments to evaluate 2044 performance gaps, specifically projects labeled Other 2, 3, and 4, and we urge council to elevate these assessments to designate funding. My understanding is not all of the funding has been designated this point in time, and these are pretty low-cost assessments, and so at this point in time, I think that they would be able to be added. From our list of projects, these are by far the most important to our group. But as Bellevue continues to grow, we'll need a prioritization process that's not just responsive, but modern and forward-looking, and we encourage council to pursue a more transparent and data-driven approach, one that identifies system gaps, tracks mode shift, and supports a cohesive long-range plan. Thank you for your time and leadership, and we really look forward to not only supporting the council, the commission, and staff as well. They've been really great to work with on all of these items, but to also be supportive in finding future funding opportunities as well, so thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sraveda Chandra.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Shaveda, and I'm a student living in Bellevue. I'm also part of a youth leadership program called Sustainability Ambassadors, which is dedicated to rapidly advancing a sustainable future. I'm here today because I believe that Bellevue must prioritize the rapid development of multimodal facilities such as bike lanes, crosswalks, and bus lanes. As a young adult, I want to be able to walk and bike around Bellevue on my own, but right now that doesn't always feel safe. Bike lanes are often right next to fast-moving traffic, and crosswalks aren't always where they're needed. It's hard for people, especially kids and teens, to choose sustainable ways to get around. Transportation is a big part of our city's emissions. In 2023, the transportation sector accounted for 42% of Bellevue's emissions. We can lower that figure significantly if people transition from their cars to walking, biking, and transit, so making that switch easier should be a top priority. If we invest in better bike lanes, safer crosswalks, and reliable bus lanes, more people will feel confident leaving their cars behind. It's not just good for safety, but good for environment, our health, and our community. Bellevue's environmental stewardship plan calls for the reducing per capita vehicle travel by 50% by 2050. Rapidly building multimodal infrastructure helps us reach that goal and helps people like me feel more comfortable using sustainable methods to get where we need to go. I'm asking you to prioritize these rapid development of these facilities. I want to be able to be a part of a Bellevue where everyone, from students to seniors, can move around safely and sustainably. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cameron Cast. Mr. Cast, are you joining us remotely? Is that you, Mr. Cast? Can you hear me? Mr. Cast, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you so much. Sorry.
Your time begins now.
Thanks. Sorry for that. First time commenting virtually. Mayor Robinson, council members and city staff, my name is Cameron and I live, work, and commute in Bellevue. I support the request of the Safe Bellevue Coalition in devoting more resources to the quick and efficient construction of multimodal transportation facilities in the city that I love to call home. In 2024, a record high of 36 people lost their lives or were seriously injured on Bellevue streets. This included 14 people in cars, 14 people walking or rolling, and 8 people in bikes. Each and every one of these people and their families suffered from the poor design of our public infrastructure. Repeated studies have shown that adding a protected bike lane to a road improves safety for everybody, including drivers, as well as people walking, rolling, or biking. Road diets have also been shown to reduce overall collisions by up to 47% by reducing conflict points, improving visibility, and naturally lowering speeds while having minimal to no impacts on vehicle congestion. Anyone can get anywhere in Bellevue with a car safely and reliably, but there are whole areas of the city without safe pedestrian and bike infrastructure. This is unacceptable. When we talk about mobility needs by mode, it is important to note that the needs are much more severe and urgent for people walking, rolling, and taking transit. This council has repeatedly discussed and affirmed the importance of moving urgently to meet the goals of Vision Zero by 2030. However, as of June 30th, 17 people have already lost their lives or been seriously injured on Bellevue streets this year alone. This is unacceptable and we need to be moving faster. Quickly and efficiently implementing safety improvements on Bellevue streets not only saves lives, but it's easier on the city budget. Rather than spending our valuable resources of time, money, and labor on costly long-term projects to expand the right-of-way, we can use existing street space to build this infrastructure as quickly as possible through road diets and traffic calming measures. Investing in better bike lanes, bus-only lanes, safer crosswalks will only encourage people to leave their cars behind, letting the city and individuals living in it reap the rewards of reduced traffic, safer streets, and cleaner air. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the end of our pre-registered list. So at this point, we do still have some time remaining in oral communication. So I'd ask if there is anyone else joining us right now who would like to make a comment to the council. If so, please raise your hand, and that includes those online. And I do see 2 hands online. I'll call the first hand I saw. First name Heidi. Can you please identify yourself?
It's Heidi Dean.
Perfect. Thank you. Your time begins now.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members. Heidi Dean from Newport Hills here. I had not intended to speak, but I did see that you were getting your briefing on the Eastgate and Factoria NAP kickoff that will be happening. And so I wanted to touch bases on that just because of the experience that Newport had with that process, which I wrote to all of you about. I was a little disappointed that I have not heard back from any of you on that or from our city manager, Ms. Carlson. I would really like to talk to you about that. I did receive an email back from community development director and assistant director that accused me of attacking staff for speaking the truth about what happened to us. Again, disappointing because I have gone through the process, as have other neighborhood leaders, of the proper channels of trying to address these issues that I laid out for all of you. And we get nowhere. And so I have been talking to Leslie Geller with Eastgate Community Association. I'm very worried that Eastgate and Factoria are going to experience the same issues that we did. And Factoria in particular has no community associations to help organize people and get them to participate. So, you know, what happens to them is essentially whatever the staff decides is going to happen to them. I wanted to point out that even though the plan talks a lot about inclusivity and that sort of thing, what we experienced was people people were brought in from outside of the Newport area to give their input. And over again, it says that these are supposed to be neighborhood driven and resident driven plans, but that's not the case. Even at our public hearing, it was literally stated that anybody who basically passes through Newport can provide input. I don't think that's okay, especially when you wait for something for 30 something years to update it. It's not okay. It's supposed to be about the people who live there, who have their small businesses there, what the future for them. So please, I'm hoping that Leslie will speak and give you some thoughts on this, but please make sure that their process goes better, because what you're going to see in September is not representative of what so many of the people up here in my section of Newport Hills wanted to see for Newport. And you'll see very clearly, this is a tale of two Newports. So thank you very much for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you. The next speaker who has raised their hand online is Leslie Geller. Ms. Geller, can you hear me?
I can.
Great. Your time begins now.
Leslie Geller, Eastgate resident for more than 31 years, homeowner. I also was not intending to speak tonight. I'm talking on the topic that Heidi spoke about of our upcoming, which is initiating tonight, neighborhood area plan. And I read the council packet, and I have some real concerns, echoing what Heidi mentioned, although I had these concerns on my own about who is going to be reached out to and engaged in the Eastgate, at least. I cannot speak for Factoria. Neighborhood area plan. I want to ensure, and I need to know how I can ensure that the input provided into the Eastgate neighborhood area plan comes from people who live in Eastgate. I don't think Bellevue College students should be included. I like Bellevue Diversity Advisory Network and Bellevue Network on Aging, like that's citywide. Those were listed as people that will be contacted. And how do I ensure that the people that actually get talked to, engaged with, live in Eastgate? Yeah. I also, because Eastgate and Factoria are contiguous, and I don't know any neighborhood leader or anything in Factoria, I would also like to ensure that I get to be also engaged with the people who are involved in this in Factoria, because what affects Eastgate affects Factoria and vice versa. Thanks.
Thank you. I do not see any additional hands online. I'll do one final call out in the room. Okay. I do not see any additional hands. Deputy Mayor, before I turn it back to you, I'm going to make a quick little announcement here. For those 5 of you that are sitting on the dais this evening, you've probably noticed that your monitors are not working or connected. So we have discovered a technical issue. Ms. Imperial is going to pass out the Neighborhood Walks PowerPoint, and we're going to hope by the study session we'll be back connected again. But with that, I will turn it back to you. Everyone else in the room will be able to see the screens.
Great. Thank you so much for all of the folks that joined and talked to us and shared their input with us. We have a report of the city manager on neighborhood walks. So our city manager is going to introduce that.
Mayor and council members. So every summer for past how many years? 8 years. Department leadership and the city manager's office has headed out into the neighborhoods to walk with residents, to learn about what is happening in their part of the city. We all learn something on those walks, including meeting some new neighbors. And I do find, and I think most people who participate find that it's a unique way to engage with the people where they live, they work, or they're visiting. We have a new staff leader this year who took on the challenge of organizing the walks and conducting the walks. And I will say she excelled at that, stepping in. And that is Kara Iwasaki, and she's here tonight. She's a new community relations coordinator. She's joined by Mike McCormick-Huntelman. They're here to give you a little overview of the walks, and I welcome you both, and I will turn it over to Mike.
All right. Thank you, City Manager Carlson. Mayor Robinson, hello. Deputy Mayor Malakuchin, council members. First off, we want to recognize this summer's neighborhood walks, all of your participation on them. In addition to city leadership and our department directors, the willingness to essentially go to where people are and explore new places and have a different conversation is really what sets Bellevue apart. It also makes the neighborhood walks somewhat magical in the moment. And so I wanted to recognize that and thank you for that. Tonight's presentation, as you can imagine, is for information only. We're not seeking any council direction at this time. As our city manager Carlson mentioned, in 2018, neighborhood walks began simply as a way to ensure that we can connect our residents with city leaders and see Bellevue's neighborhoods through the eyes of our residents. Understand what's happening locally, what the opportunities are, and also what some of the neighborhood concerns are. We've been doing this now. This is our 8th year, I believe, 2000. I'm doing the math in my head. And one of the things that I think is an unexpected outcome of neighborhood walks is it changes the conversations. It allows us to move from a place of stating opinion to meaningful back and forth and takeaways and discoveries. So tonight, Kara Iwasaki is going to walk us through where we went and what we learned. And with that, Kara.
Thank you. So we'll start with the routes for 2025. Over the last 8 years, the city has led 30 neighborhood walks, and this year the walks focused on these 3 neighborhood areas: the emerging Bellred Arts District, Eastgate, and Cougar Mountain and Lakemont. Each of these neighborhoods brought unique opportunities to connect residents with city leadership and to have informal conversations, experiencing the neighborhoods through the perspective of residents. The first neighborhood walk featured a tour of the Bellred Arts District, beginning at the Bellred Light Rail Station. We heard from the Bellred Arts District Community Alliance Executive Director, Sandy Vo, who brought enthusiasm for both existing and upcoming art installations, community events, and the vision for the Bellred Arts District to be a place where the arts community thrives in Bellevue. We visited with 3 local businesses, Pacific Northwest Ballet, West Coast Drum Shop, and Theater 33, getting a taste of the current arts culture as it continues to grow. Residents in the Bellred area spoke about their desire to experience a neighborhood where they can listen to live music, get a drink, and take a walk and view the local art, with hopes to see more signage and public art installations that visually set this area apart. Our second walk was in the Eastgate neighborhood, beginning at the South Bellevue Community Center with stops at Newport Way Library and the new location of a Pocket Neighborhood Park. One of the leaders of the Eastgate Community Association, Mickey Larimer, shared about their group's summer block party, co-hosted with the library's summer reading kickoff, which hosted close to 300 attendees. Larimer also shared about the role of the neighborhood association, focusing on their 3 pillars of community, advocacy, and safety. Residents in Eastgate spoke about their love for their community, especially the trees, and their desire to participate in the planning for both the new neighborhood park as well as the neighborhood area planning coming this year. They also shared concerns about the affordability of their neighborhood, the rapid change in homes being developed, and the need for additional neighborhood parks throughout Eastgate. Then finally, we ended the Neighborhood Walk series in Cougar Mountain and Lakemont, beginning at the Lewis Creek Park Visitor Center. We heard from Park Ranger Kaylee Hinkson, who shared about the ongoing sustainability efforts to maintain South Bellevue's natural beauty and trail systems. This walk was the first in the program's history to offer the option of Mandarin language interpretation. Unfortunately, we didn't have any residents in attendance who needed to use the interpreter's skills at this walk. Residents at this location shared their love of proximity to wildlife and nature, as well as gratitude for the city's prioritization of snow removal during weather events. They also shared a need for more parking at neighborhood parks, concerns about e-bikes on trails, and increased congestion on Lakemont Boulevard. Each of the 3 groups of residents offered their own unique perspective and experience of life in Bellevue. Their feedback gave light to the diversity of hopes and needs of each area, with persistent themes of curiosity, surprise, and gratitude. Gratitude not just for the bottles of water provided by our lovely fire department as we walked in the summer evening heat, but gratitude especially for the department directors and council members that attended each walk. Across all 3 walks, 50 residents participated, with a direct correlation between the 2 walks where mailers were included in marketing efforts and the number of attendees at each of those walks. Learnings from this year include diversifying marketing efforts to include multi-language and expanding formats for promotion, a greater focus on route accessibility for all ages and abilities to participate, and enhancing both the number and content of planned stops along the routes. Overall, the ongoing success of neighborhood walks continues to be displayed in the deepened connections between residents and city leadership. The Neighborhood Walk series is committed to continuous improvement, and we welcome feedback on how to improve the walk in future iterations. We want to thank you again for your participation in these neighborhood walks this summer and emphasize the value of continuing to meet residents in their communities as we listen and learn from one another. And with that, we close our report. Thank you.
We do welcome if residents have future ideas on how to improve neighborhood walks to send them to us at neighborhoodoutreach@bellevuewa.gov. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have a council business. I think we have an appointment for the Art Commission. Council members Sumadeveria, do you want me to talk about that and make your motion?
Yeah, I can. Do you want me to talk about it?
That would be great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So this was my first appointment, and then I was so impressed with how many very intelligent, also extremely excited applicants we were able to interview and going through in the booklet. Through all the interviews, every one of them were unique, passionate, and then very specialized in the different realms of art. So the one that I'm recommending for us to appoint is Charles McIntyre. He is a 28-year-old resident, a parent of 4 beautiful children, actually from the Bellevue School District. And then they were very, I think, crucial in the Surrey Down Community Club, where they focus a lot of talk about the youth music. And then also for himself, he has a different wide range of experience, but both personal and professionally. He was in marketing and also he was a filmmaker. When I had interviewed him, I found there's so many fascination, connection, and how much commitment he can actually give to our community. So that's why I'm really excited appointing him for this role.
Great. Please make the motion as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I move to appoint Charles McIntyre to a full term Arts Commission expiring May 2027.
It's been moved and seconded by Councilmember Lee. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. Everyone said aye. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Everyone said aye. Great. I think we can jump into our first study session. Our city manager is going to introduce that.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, sorry. Going to give you both titles tonight. So the Transportation Facilities Plan is an immediate kind of range transportation planning document. And last September, staff began the process of updating the Transportation Facility Plan, or TFP, for this cycle. Since then, our Transportation Commission has been very hard at work reviewing the status of projects that were in the 2022 to 2023 TFP, as well as identifying other sources of candidate projects. The Transportation Facilities Plan is important because it provides a funding-constrained view of our potential future transportation projects. It gives us a sense of what is affordable, given our current revenue constraints, and it also gives us a sense of what important projects are not likely to be affordable. This cycle, we have experienced more revenue constraint than in recent years, and the Commission has made a recommendation to you that they're here tonight to share. And that recommendation does take a balanced look at the funding challenge and proposes to extend the time frame of the TFP. And due to the limited funding that you'll learn more about tonight, this also does represent a challenge and an opportunity to have a future conversation about supporting transportation funding revenues in the future. So you're going to hear a lot more detail tonight about the Transportation Commission process and their recommendations. And we are joined by Vice Chair Drew McGill, welcome, and Transportation Director Andrew Singalakis, Eric Miller, our Implementation Planning Manager from Transportation, and our Chief Financial Officer, John Risha, to give you the presentation and to seek council direction at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'll hand it over to Andrew.
Andrew, would you please talk about which slide you are while you are moving through the slides, because we just don't have them in front of us.
Oh, I just
talk
wanted
about
to-
the page.
Want to go, it's page 2.
Great, thank
I
you.
just wanted to go to the direction. But thank you, City Manager Carlson, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Malakutian, and council members. We're here tonight to provide the Transportation Commission's recommendation on the preliminary project list and to confirm direction to extend the Transportation Facilities Plan, the TFP, from a 12-year document to a 20-year document. The TFP, as City Manager Carlson said, is a fiscally constrained plan based on what we reasonably know and can expect in revenue in the future based on past historic trends and current trends. And before I turn it over, I'd like to offer some opening remarks. Part of the reason that we're moving to a 20-year TFP is because we do not have enough projected revenues to accommodate all the projects that are in our current 6-year capital improvement program, or CIP. To preserve the projects in our current CIP, it requires us moving out to a 20-year planning horizon. And keep in mind that the TFP is a planning document. It's updated every 2 years or so. And during each update, we apply the latest information. And if new revenue source is obtained between now and the next update, that will be reflected in the next plan. And aside from the very real revenue declines that John Risha will discuss in the presentation, I want you to consider a couple of things. First, our primary maintenance program, the overlay, was moved out of the CIP and into the operating budget so that it could compete better and keep up with the waterfall approach that we have that John will be talking about as well. It gets a priority of funding because it's maintenance. And this is about $12 million a year that used to be in the CIP, used to be the TFP, but is now in the operating budget. And the other factor to consider is that the city is paying about $15 million a year in debt service for the TIFIA projects and other projects in the Bellevue area. And
the city should really view itself as being really proactive. Went out there, built all these projects prior to light rail coming in, by and large. Some of them are still being built right now. And, really got ahead of the development before it occurred. If that hadn't happened, we'd still be in the process of building those projects now and well into the future. Yeah, and there are a few things that are missing that we need to figure out how to get funding for, like the completion of Spring Boulevard and 120th Avenue Northeast for construction. But really, at the end of it, that's really most of the major arterial projects that we have in the city. And this means moving forward, most of the transportation work will be programmatic, meaning smaller projects in various locations to address intersection capacity, meaning smaller projects in various locations, bicycle and pedestrian networks, and safety. We have considerable amounts of funding in our programs. And the dip in revenue means that these improvements will take longer to implement. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Miller.
Thank you, Andrew. Good evening, council members. I'm going to jump ahead a slide to the slide 3 agenda. I'll touch on the TFP update, TFP, Transportation Facilities Plan Update process, kind of cover what the TFP is, what its purposes are, and talk a little bit about the timeline. I'll pass off to John Risha, who will again cover more information about the revenue forecast. That will kind of explain our rationale for recommending that this TFP be extended to a 20-year plan versus its historical and code-specified 12-year planning horizon. And to talk about the TFP project list and the process, I'll hand off to Drew McGill, and we'll ultimately, of course, turn it back to you, Council. Jump into this TFP purpose slide, number 4. Again, the Transportation Facilities Plan is a financially constrained plan. That's very key to the whole exercise, and thus the big discussion about the revenue. TFP is really our intermediate range planning, transportation facilities planning document, fitting underneath the vision of our comprehensive plan. We develop transportation and bring to council either sub-area or long-range facilities plans, such as our downtown transportation plan or our Bellevue transportation plan. We have also some functional plans, most specifically, and we'll reference this later, our transit master plan. This TFP update is a little bit of a transitional plan update. It's the first time we've really fully kind of embraced the mobility implementation plan, which is not so much a plan, but a process to evaluate transportation projects, looking at the modal networks for pedestrians, for bicyclists, for vehicles, and for transit too, to identify by using the mobility implementation plans, various networks and performance targets. It identifies where the gaps are. That helps identify candidates for this plan update and ultimately projects that could be funded in our CIP. And this is the primary source of projects that we draw from to put forth budget proposals for the capital improvement program. And the TFP is the basis for our transportation impact fee program. The little sidetrack on the diagram shows that in our case, the vehicular capacity projects that are a subset of the transportation facility plan larger list are the impact fee project lists that are the basis for that program. We develop a fee schedule, and development comes and pays a per trip fee, a growth trip fee. That revenue feeds back into the capital improvement program to help implement the projects. Jumping to our timeline, more or less, staff kicked off this process last September 2024 with the Transportation Commission, initially using that mobility implementation plan to identify candidates and where the gaps occurred. And Drew will talk a little bit more about that in a couple slides. We conducted a public outreach process in February and March. involving some public open houses, both online and in person, as well as the transportation commission meetings, of which we've had 9, I believe, on this subject up until last month. Pending council direction to proceed with the process tonight, we will move forward into an environmental review phase. That is the primary where we're going to remodel this network, kind of further identifying what this network could do, assuming the growth that's projected by the horizon year, again, 2044, 2045. Again, we'll develop an impact fee program report that justifies the fee that we charge, and we will return to the Transportation Commission sharing this information and work with them to develop a final TFP plan and a recommendation to council to have that plan adopted hopefully by the end of this year. Now jumping to slide 6, I'm going to hand off to Mr. Risha.
Thank you, Eric. Deputy Mayor, Mayor, council members, good evening. I'm going to start off with just a little bit of a refresher. Many of you will remember last year during the budget process, we spent a good amount of time talking about our comprehensive financial policies. One of the outcomes of that policy was formalizing our investment waterfall, which in simplest terms is the order of operations for funding. First, we take care of our debt service, our legal obligations. Second, we maintain our assets and services. This is really important when it comes to transportation because when we were looking at it as a capital expenditure, it was much further down, but bringing it in as maintenance allows us to make sure it's got its priority funding. And if you will remember, you also added some funding into this space during the budget process. Third, we then move into the planned growth and then put some money aside as available for future growth, and then start investing in additional new services and new assets. We did also spend some time in guiding principles and some policy update areas, but the most important work really helped guide us through a difficult and challenging year, which will also help guide us when we're not in challenging years, which I hope is coming. Slide 7. This slide will be familiar to all of you. This is the same slide that we used in our forecast, which this took us through our budget process. It does have that flattening of revenues that has come to be a reality of where we're sitting, which has not put us in a position to grow as fast, and in fact has required us to really lean into that waterfall and make some very difficult choices, as you did during the last budget cycle. Next slide. On slide 8, some of the ways that this manifested during the budget process, as Director Singalakis was discussing, the 2 bond issuances and the TIFIA loans for the advanced work that was done, $250 million worth of transportation investment, has been largely completed, and the debt service has now come due. And so we're now making payments on all of that. It's around $15 million a year for the next 20 plus years. So while we did the work, now we're paying for those roadway improvements and transportation improvements overall. The shift of transportation out of the CIP and into the operating program, and increasing the funding to make sure that we were meeting our maintenance targets. This did require, and how it manifested in the capital improvement program, was wanting to make sure that the council and the public saw the list of needs of for transportation, which was all of the CIPs, and then a correction or contra line that was added in to help balance based off of our available resources for the 6-year financial planning period. This was a significant reduction space, and Transportation Department is doing some amazing work right now, working through the challenges of what are the most important pieces, how do we prioritize those sets of investments, and the TFP is part of that process as well. And while there are also financial risks that we've identified as we get into the specifics of the TFP, or Transportation Facilities Plan forecast, we've done what we can to help mitigate those based off of the guiding principles and the balanced risk profile that you've put forward for us in our financial strategy. Next slide. That moves us into the revenue sourcing. As we look at that forecast carries out from general fund about $111 million, almost $112 million. The transportation levy, neighborhood congestion, safety, and connectivity levy. There's one piece about this that is different than what we would do in our normal financial plan. During this 20-year period, the levy does expire. For planning purposes only, we've assumed that the levy is renewed at its current rate. If for it to be renewed, you would have to make decisions to seek that out. The public would have an opportunity to vote on that. There are many decisions that would be necessary for that to come to being, but for planning purposes, we believe it is reasonable to carry that line, just with the caveat that there is a set of decisions that wouldn't be necessary for that. Next comes the motor vehicle fuel tax. While we talk about this as a diminishing revenue, this is a revenue that is relatively flat, and it is growing by about $20,000 a year, but it's growing slower than inflation, which in our financial world means it's diminishing or reducing revenue. It's not a big one, and that was the answer to your question, Councilmember Neuenhaus. Transportation impact fees are a product of development. As we think about this, our current development cycle is relatively low in terms of the number of permits coming through and the new trips that would be bringing into the system. And if the development isn't happening, the dollars and the fees can't be paid to mitigate those trips. And so we've had to forecast our transportation impact fees based off of the current volumes and current trajectory of growth. We hope that this is wrong. We believe that the development cycle will come back, and eventually those equity markets will free up some capital, and we'll start seeing that. We're starting to hear some glimmers in the background, and we're very hopeful that that will start to change. When it comes to grants and other external sources, the Transportation Department is very competitive and very successful in receiving grants from all variety of sources. But in order to mitigate for the current grant environment at a national, state, and local level, the Transportation Department has identified about an average of about $5.6 million, which is well below what we normally receive, to project out a level of grant funding during this period. If we start to see that grants start to jiggle free as they used to, and we start to see the opportunity, when we come back for future TFPs, these numbers will come back. This is part of our balanced risk approach to identify where do we feel we're being conservative enough, but not being too conservative, to think through the right balance of risk in this equation. All told, these revenues represent about $496 million for the 20-year period. While that sounds like a substantial amount in normal terms, we would like to see that, and normally we would see that as a larger amount. We just are not seeing the revenues to be able to achieve anything on a quicker basis. As we move forward to how it's spent, I'm going to actually pass back to Eric to talk a little bit about the investments associated with those dollars.
Thank you, John. Jumping up to slide 10, kind of where does the revenue go? So John mentioned, and Andrew both mentioned, the contra line or the budget shortfall in the adopted CIP. Within, of course, the CIP being a 6-year plan, not being funded in its entirety, we looked forward and learned that a 12-year plan was also not enough. With other expenditures we are considered constrained. I'll touch on those. We're showing on the slide here the last 5 years of the current 6-year CIP, because this plan kicks off in 2026, next year. So that's the $132 million. Then the contra line, or the unfunded amount, the $157 we need to take off the top. We also have ongoing programs that we are assuming will be continue to be funded beyond the CIP years, and that's 2031 out to the plan horizon in 2045. We're assuming that at about $12 million a year. That's a little bit less than is currently funded in the current CIP for all of our programs, leaving us with about $26 million to allocate to non-CIP transportation facility plan projects. And thus the 20 years, we had to go out to further horizon to make this plan come into the positive. Before we jump to the next slide, I think, Andrew, you wanted to mention a couple points related to our CIP and
Yeah,
future
we're
planning.
currently engaging with a consultant. We are negotiating the contract with them right now. And their goal is going to be to develop a portfolio approach to our CIP. And some of the comments that we heard earlier tonight too, this will make it easier to identify. I would imagine one mode would be vehicular capacity. We haven't figured out all this yet, bike, ped, et cetera, and how much is going to be allocated to each of those different portfolios or programs. And it'll also involve a process, public process to prioritize within some of our existing programs. We've got an awful lot of programs in the CIP that deal with similar issues. Bringing them together, consolidating them, and trying to figure all of that out is something that's going to be happening, while at the same time scoping with stakeholders on what does a transportation master plan look like that we could bring back as a budget proposal for the 2027-28 budget.
And right before I switch to the next slide, with that 26.5 million balance in revenue, the staff and the commission did not feel it was appropriate to spread those few dollars among the many project candidates. I mean, one project could take all that and much more, and we'll talk about some of the projects coming up, but that's really the reason for, if it's not funded in the CIP, we're just going to kind of hold that aside as a revenue bank, so to speak, and not allocate to individual projects. And with that, jumping to slide 11, I'm going to hand off to your Transportation Commission Vice Chair, Drew McGill.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, virtually, Deputy Mayor Malakutian, and council members. I'm Drew McGill, the Transportation Commission Vice Chair. I'm here to say a few words about the Transportation Commission's role in the TFP project prioritization process, and specifically about our preliminary 2026 to 2045 TFP project list recommendations. I'll start with the sources for the projects. And so sources include, right up there on the screen, we're on slide 11, projects in the existing 2022 to 2033 TFP. And then the second source is the MIP. A few minutes ago, you heard from Eric a description of the MIP, Mobility Implementation Plan. It's a new thing a tool that we're using to prioritize. He talked about how it serves to set performance targets for vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle modes. It identifies locations where conditions on the ground fall short of the target performance level. These are called performance gaps. Last year, in the months before the start of the TFP process, the Commission received reports from staff, assisted by a consultant, on the conditions for each of the modal networks, with focus on where there were gaps in the system for vehicles, pedestrians, and bicycles. The gaps were evaluated, and the higher priority locations were advanced for consideration to the TFP process, which started back last December. The third source is, as you all know, we did a lot of work on Bike Bellevue in the last few years. Projects referred from that program were also included for consideration in the TFP. And then finally, staff reviewed 2044 vehicular network analysis performed by the comp plan update and proposed projects for several intersection locations where future demand may cause performance to fall below target. Moving on to project evaluation, next slide, slide 12. First, the projects included in the currently adopted 2025 to 2030 CIP are automatically included in the TFP. We're throwing a lot of acronyms around, but I know you guys know those ones. That includes 25 projects and 12 other ongoing programs. Okay, so on top of that, we had 68 projects to consider from the other sources I just mentioned. Staff evaluated them according to the MIP system. As mentioned, this new system allows for scoring and ranking each project by mode based on key criteria for that mode. So it's a new tool that we're able to use in the TFP process this time around. Bicycle projects were scored against other bicycle projects. Pedestrian projects were scored against other pedestrian projects, et cetera. Using the MIP system and scoring, we're able to compare projects numerically. Some projects include multiple modes, for example, improving both vehicular and pedestrian conditions. So they got scores for each mode. It gets a little bit trickier when you need to create a single list for priority projects across all modes. There is no numeric way to score across modes in the MIP system. So, and by the way, it's not all about the numeric score. So that is just a helpful guide for discussion that we used. So just keep that in mind. If you see a score for pedestrian, it's not equivalent to the score for vehicular. There are different guidelines that go into each one of those. So at that point, we looked at other factors not captured in the scoring, factors such as the extent of investment to date in each project, the opportunity to collaborate with other parties. An example would be the Bellevue College connection, public comments, and then council priorities, for example, the Grand Connection. This is where the TFP project staff also conducted an internal process to look at these factors and presented their findings to the commission, which we then review. We had some back and forth on the list, but we did come to an agreed upon recommendation. From that came the 7 priority projects that we recommend being added to the TFP. Next slide, slide 14. There you go.
13.
13. Oh, thank you. Slide 13. So 7 priority projects. Typically, these projects already are underway or involve collaborations with others. All of these have some kind of funding assigned, CIP, impact fee, and or transportation, TFP discretionary funding per our recommendation. In addition, we are recommending 37 more projects to be added to the TFP as placeholders in the event more funding is made available. In total, these projects were prioritized to support the growth of the city, to support transit mobility, and to build out the pedestrian and bicycle network. In light of the budget constraints, and speaking of the budget constraints, we recognize the funding outlook is tight. So most of the projects in this list do not have specific funding allocations associated with them. The exceptions are 2 projects in downtown that are at the top of the list, TFP 110 and TFP 219. By adding funding allocations for these projects, they are included in the city's impact fee program. One thing to note here as well, we did not prioritize the projects within the TFP. The goal here was to build out the new TFP. But as budget constraints or conditions change and further prioritization is needed, the Transportation Commission stands by ready to work with the transportation staff to make further prioritization recommendations. Just a couple maps coming, but before going there, I wanted to close by stating that on July 10th, the Transportation Commission voted unanimously 5-0. We had 1 absent and 1 position vacant to recommend the preliminary project list presented in your packets tonight for consideration. The Transportation Commission looks forward to any feedback you have and to bringing back a final TFP to the council for adoption later this year. I'll hand it back to Eric if you want to cover those slides.
Thank you, Drew. Yeah, I'll wrap up quickly. The next 2 slides. The first one shows a map of all 69 recommended transportation facilities plan projects. In the project list in your packet, each project has an indication under which of the categories that are indicated on the screen, whether they support growth and development, whether they mitigate the impacts to residents of that growth and development, or whether they build out the pedestrian or bicycle system, or supporting transit mobility. I have one more map that shows a subset of the full list. These are the approximately 26 projects that are shown that with funding allocated, most of these are in the capital improvement program, they would be on the ground by the planned horizon year of 2045. That we're also including the Metro Rapid Ride K line on this list, though it does not touch Bellevue's revenue, but it's a key transportation facility that we do expect to be on the ground by that horizon year. And wrapping up, we're back to looking for the council's direction to direct the commission and staff to proceed with the balance of this process, and I'll hand it off to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you so much, Andrew, Eric, John. I don't know where is Molly and the whole entire team of transportation and staff. Thank you, the whole Transportation Commission. Drew, as a vice chair, thank you for being here, and its liaison, Councilmember Neuenhaus. Amazing work. You guys did a great job, and I would love to start with Councilmember Neuenhaus.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you for the great presentation. And honestly, this was probably, very challenging. Not probably, it was, and being witness to that, and as much that the commission really labored over these recommendations and over these projects, and really would like to compliment staff as well to help navigate kind of this unusual period, and also being just very transparent. And John, really appreciate you in terms of just kind of laying out where we are financially, that have led to these decisions and these recommendation in terms of where we're at right now. So amazing work under difficult circumstances. So thank you all. I'm fully supportive of directing the Transportation Commission and staff to proceed with the TFP process and undertake the SEPA review and prepare an updated impact fee program report based on the project list that we just went through, and then revise our city code. A few points that I'd like to make, though, is that I am very happy to see that we are moving and have moved, the maintenance program out of the CIP and into the operating budget. I think that'll be beneficial for us moving forward as well. And I appreciate the emphasis we put on the maintenance, because the better we keep it, the longer it's going to last. So that's really, really, really important. And Drew Miguel, thank you for walking through the process in terms of how these projects were selected. It was very thorough, very thoughtful, and specifically calling out, the unfunded projects in the current TFP, the pedestrian system gaps, the bicycle system gaps, the bike project referrals that were part of the Bike Bellevue initiative, and then all the traffic analysis that goes into this as well. And the fact that the Canada projects were evaluated using that MIP scoring system, I think, was really important as well for pedestrian, bike, vehicular modes. This is truly a multimodal view of our overall transportation system in the city of Bellevue. Fully supportive of looking at the TFP. Not only is it the right thing to do, I think we should be doing it just because we don't have the funds in order to do the 12 years. So moving the 20 years makes complete sense in order to list all these projects, giving the budget shortfall of $157 million that we're currently looking at right now. So I'm supportive of that as well. And I wish the revenue picture was brighter, but we also have to remember that, and I appreciate you mentioning this, Director Singalakis, that there's a lot of work that kind of went ahead with TIFIA and other things that were really important, but we did use some of that bonded revenue, and there were things that were built in advance of light rail. Now I wish we had gone, not to blame anybody or anyone, but just we had even been more aggressive in terms of some of the infrastructure, like on the boulevard, on Spring Boulevard there. I could think of a few projects that would have been great to even further be more aggressive there, but we were as aggressive as we could be at the time. So I really appreciate that, and I hope folks don't lose sight of that important work that went into that ahead of time. We're a growing city with a lot of transportation needs in all modes. So my hope that tonight is that this is an important step in the process. I think the consultant that you're looking at, Andrew, makes a lot of sense in order to help us prioritize these projects and how we go about these projects, and then also we'll hopefully have a clearer picture as we go along here, as John mentioned, in terms of the financial picture as well. And speaking of that consultant, Director Singalux, I don't know if you can touch a little bit on how quickly you're hoping to get this consultant on board, but then when would the council then get an update in terms of the prioritization of these projects? Is that 6 to 12 months out, 18 months out? How does that look?
We haven't started working with them yet. We're in the process of contract negotiating. We're hoping for at least having a really good idea of what it will look like about 3 or 4 months into it. And we're hoping to have the contract executed this month, within a couple of weeks.
Okay, fantastic. And then I just wanted to bring up a couple of questions that we heard from some folks tonight, but then also via email. Complete Streets Bellevue asked a question about the importance of transit, and are we signaling correctly that transit is important to us and remains important to us, and or are there other ways that we can signal that, or is there some validity to including it, even if it's unfunded, in the TFP now?
There are transit-oriented projects. We're not a transit provider, as you know,
right.
But it's really to work with the transit agencies. So we've got the K line that is in the TFP. We also have I forget what we're calling it, but it's the Downtown Spine is another project that is a transit-oriented project, and I think I might be missing another one as well.
The Bellevue College Connection is another.
The College Connection. Having those projects stay in or stay out, if they stay, they would have to be unfunded. It would make no difference either way in terms of the commitment or communicating the commitment. We are planning on doing an update to or creating a transit master plan. You can express support for certain studies and things in that document as well.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And then speaking of studies, I think the Bellevue Chamber weighed in on some of the low-cost assessment or studies that we could do now, even if we can't fund the entire project. The rationale in terms of not funding anything unless we can, afford the entire project, I understand that. But on the other hand, if we can just do the assessment now, then be ready to go once we do have that funds, does seem to me have some validity to it. And I believe they mentioned under other projects 2, 3, and 4 at $120K each. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that in terms of the rationale of thinking, and maybe we should reevaluate that.
I mean, we've done limited analysis right now too of some of the intersections that were being referred to in that document. I think that the transportation master plan would allow us to take it a little bit further. I don't anticipate going into like 30% design or anything like that as a result of it, but having a good, clear picture about which ones can move forward and what are the issues associated with each of those projects. So I think that we can get that from our transportation master planning process.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. And then last question I had, so we had a comment about it in terms of kind of the overall balance of funding of different projects, be it vehicular or bike or pedestrian, et cetera. And I didn't see it, and I could have missed it in the charts, but any sense of the balance? I know it doesn't drive our decisions in terms of which projects we're going to fund or not, but it just got me kind of curious in terms of percentage-wise, what mode of transportation is being funded more or less. Do we have any sense of that?
I don't know about this current TFP. I don't know, maybe Eric might have broken it down. And that is a task that's going to have to occur when we have our consultant working on our portfolio approach. And I don't want to throw out a number at this point right now. We need to do some thinking about that and what that split is. Granted, vehicular capacity is a very important issue in the city to accommodate the growth, and as is the other modes as well. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And again, great work.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ewenhouse. Mayor Robinson.
Thank you. I appreciate the work that's been done here. That's a lot of work. And I understand the need for a 20-year extension to the TFP time frame. So no problem with that. I have a question and then I have some comments. My question is, where are the MIP projects in the TFP?
Do you want to answer that? It's not like that there are MIP projects. The MIP is used to evaluate projects and to rank projects.
Okay, well then where are the ped bike projects in the TFP? Are they not going to happen until 2045?
No, they're part of our programs, and they're, like I was saying before, there are a variety of different programs that deal with all, bike ped projects, the sidewalk program, everything else. They're programmatic, and there are several programs for many of these. And they all have lists of priorities or rankings associated with them. Part of the challenge will be when we combine the programs, how do we rank among the different combined programs? And that's going to be a key task of the consultant that we are currently engaging with.
Okay, so let me just say, we cannot wait 20 years to get these bike projects done. I'm just gonna say that. So I realize we have a budget issues, so we need to think about how we get the revenue to put some of those projects in. And so I would like to, one more question, then I'm gonna make a recommendation. I would like to review our guiding principles at the retreat this year, if the city manager can make a note of that. And look at the, yeah, because those are being used for MIP prioritization, right? Okay.
Mayor, could I ask a clarification? Are you speaking about the financial guidance or the guiding principles for the MIP?
For the MIP, well,
Okay.
for the transportation project selection.
Okay, thank you.
So I know you're gonna have a consultant in, I think that's a great idea. I would like to ask that we look at the impact fees and look at how other cities are including pedestrian and bike impacts and just consider what that might look like for Bellevue. One, are we charging enough with just basic car impact fees? And two, should we include pedestrian and bike impacts into our fees? And then lastly, what it would look like to exempt affordable housing from impact fees.
Well, we already exempt affordable housing from impact fees. And part of the evaluation that we're going to need to do after tonight is to look at the impact fees, and we can look at other cities and what they do as part of that process.
Yeah, that sounds great. So anyway, I support the 20-year extension. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Smadeveria?
Perfect, thank you. First of all, thank you, Andrew, Eric, and the entire transportation team. I thought I want to acknowledge this really exceptional work that you all have really accomplished this year, even though we know that it was under really significant financial constraints. I'm a nurse, so I really loved the methodical approach to the TFP update, either using the MIP scoring framework, or you go all the way to conducting a comprehensive public outreach through our Engaging Bellevue. And also I love the data resources from the comprehensive plan traffic analyzed to Bellevue by Bike Bellevue referrals. So this is really shows like we all as a team that working the rigor process demands and show the professionalism across all team and also including of the commission, especially with Councilwoman Jared Newhouse too. A couple of things I'm really impressed with is I love the strategic decision that to extend actually our framework to 20 years that really align with our comprehensive plan horizon. And I thought that this really creates the critical nexus between our future land use planning and also the transportation infrastructure our city really needs for the big growth ahead of us. And I thought that, the shortage of the shortfall of 157.5 million shortfall that even though we're gonna have about 26.5 million available to use over the next 2 decades, I realize that's really a really sobering reality that it does require the strategic thinking and planning from all of us. I do have 2 questions I want to ask. I want to love to hear from your insights from. The first one is, I think this relates to the future revenue opportunity for us being mobile and sustainably growing. I see the grants and external sources that representing nearly 117 million, about 24% of our total forecast. So given that we are operating in an environment where the adopted CIP already succeed the available funding, what type of specific partnership models or grant strategy are you seeing as the most promising?
I would say some of the state grants that we have that don't have federal money associated with them, and we've been talking with them as well, is the most promising. And also, we are continuing to pursue some of the federal grants, and I know that we've been working with the city council, the city attorney, on being very strategic about how we approach that.
Do you see there's any creative or innovative public and private partnership tied to the development projects?
There could be. That's a very good question, and we're always willing to see. And don't forget, private development does pay for a lot of the improvements through their frontage improvements when they're in the development review process.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much. And then my second question was, because I'm seeing that the Grand Connection I-405 crossing is being integrated into this TFP, and then so other than the very obvious multi-module benefits, I'm interested to understanding how is this integration is going to strengthen our overall transportation investment strategy. Does it so by including it in the TFP, does it create a synergy between with other planned like projects? You know, the maybe like one of the example could be the 120th Avenue corridor improvements, or maybe the East Trail connections.
Could you repeat the question? I didn't quite catch it.
Yeah. So like by adding the Grand Connection to, can we go to that slide where we talk about, I think there's a couple projects you're recommending to add into it. I think, go back a little bit. Yeah, right here. So you see there's other projects on the list, right? There's like the 120th Avenue and then the Grand Connection. So what I'm wondering is by adding the Grand Connection into the other TFP projects, does it create some type of synergy when we're creating the bigger strategy? And also, you know, what I'm more interested from the financial perspective, does this position us also enhance, I guess, our competitive advantage for federal and state grants, since by both bundling these projects together, it does prioritize our regional connectivity and then the, you know, the economic development impacts.
Councilmember, your question, this is John Risha. Your question is spot on in what it leads us towards. By keeping the Grand Connection crossing within the TFP, even if it's a separate portfolio within it, it allows us to be more competitive for grant programs and other partnerships, because this is a key multimodal connection for us as a city. And being in our plan is one of the requirements for being eligible for a variety of different programs. So it's very strategic for us to keep it within the TFP, and it positions us to link it better with some of our other programs, so we can look at holistic funding pieces. Say a grant program came available that focused on, that would be, East Trail would be competitive. This could be a way to have better connectivity. There could be some different kinds of scenarios that come with that, even though you're funding it with a different stream, but keeping it within it as a separate portfolio is a strategic decision.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the answers. By the way, I am still very impressed, and I think that, you know, this is a perfect pivotal moment for us to just be strategized and maximize every opportunity that's going to be available to us. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Councilmember Smadeveria. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, you know, I want to compliment you guys. Just before, the meeting, I was talking to some of my fellow colleagues that Bellevue is such a great city, that we have great plans, great systems, great people, great, city, that what you have done really is just, that's fantastic. You're on the right track, you're doing everything correctly. The only thing that I have, that concerns me is I want to thank again, Transportation Commission, obviously, you volunteer for this, and staff, you're doing everything you could, understanding. And I especially want to compliment John. I always compliment you when I hear you talk. You lay out the financial situation so clearly that, we understand how you can make things work. The one thing that's missing, I think we heard some of the comment from Chamber of Commerce, that we are interrelated to a lot of other things, not just transportation only. You are empowered, you are asked to do just transportation. You're doing a fantastic job. However, what you do, the money you receive to do those things are affected, are related, impacted by other things we're doing. We're doing Grand Connections one. We're creating a new area, new environment, a new area where people are living there. Going to be more homes, more housing, more development, and that requires more infrastructure support. And we're talking about middle housing. We're talking about additional 3,500 homes, eventually 35,000 homes. And that requires a lot of infrastructure, okay? And that, I don't know whether it's programmed. I don't think it has, because we haven't talked about how does it impact transportation need, transportation infrastructure, right? We're talking about what we have today. We're talking about what we envision to see. The good example you use, I want to just make a reference. It's easier to have example than just talking. Bellevue corridors, when you mentioned, we develop our transportation infrastructure and other infrastructure way ahead of Sound Transit, because we know we want to develop Bellevue corridor. That's one of the best planning that's ever done in any city in the country, because most planning are done with housing. They don't know how the transportation goes in. Transportation goes in afterwards, as an afterthought. But when we develop Bellevue corridor, we already are talking about Sound Transit. We're talking about connecting Bellevue to Redmond. This whole thing, we laid it out, we know. And this is the city's vision. The city, the council member at that time, unfortunately, most of you were not there, but I was there. We had that vision. We decided that. The council deliberated it. We talked to the public. It started actually, let's go back even further. We talk about downtown planning. We decided downtown should be developed as the center of the economy, of business. As a result, we come up with this wedding cake idea. We exactly know what we want to do. And 25 years later, it met its goal, just exactly what it is, right? And when we talk about that, we know we're going to provide transportation infrastructure, we're going to provide and utility infrastructure, we're going to provide all the infrastructure necessary to make it work. So we did that with Bellevue corridor. That's wonderful. Now we're doing with Wilburton, we're doing with Grand Connection, we're doing with some other areas. Bellevue corridor, we're just completing it really, but we're adding on other things. The thing that concerns me is we're doing so much more. We're doing so many more other things to do, and it's based on the growth the city of Bellevue want to be as we develop the whole city. It's not just one area, not this other area, the whole city. So you're talking about the whole city, transportation. You're doing a great job. I have no complaint on anything, because you understand it, you study it, you figure out how do you make sure the money lasts, How do you make sure it will, so I agree with the 20-year plan, because it's necessary, we have to go that way, we're going to grow in some way. How much will go, that's the question. What other things we have to do, that's the question. What other things that we have to have that will suck up your transportation infrastructure? We don't know what we need. That's my concern. So I don't think that's been discussed. You have some idea, well, we want to have so many housing there, we want to have so many this, so many that. So as a result, we need how many transportation structures, right, to make it work. And we do it in the right way, I agree, multicultural, multimodal, for sure. We have to have balance of pedestrian, of bicycle, and all that stuff. That's all part of the plan. So I think it's important, but you have looked at it. You know what you're looking at. You want to make a balance, but how much? How does it relate to other things that we're doing? I don't think we really have a clear idea. That comes only from city council, from the public, from the process we have to go through. And I think I have some concern. We're doing everything you can, but we may discover, well, gee, there are other things we are doing that's you haven't even thought about. You haven't worked on it. But it's going to be getting more revenue requirement, which is not programmed into what you're doing. So what you do? That's my only concern. So I think that piece is missing, but it's not your responsibility in a way. But you're working based on the council's vision, the people's vision. What else are we doing that may be competing, sucking up your revenue, which is going to make your transportation system inadequate, quote. So I want to be sure that the council understand that we have some kind of conversation, that we are not going to be surprised. That's what I'm going to say. So I want to thank you guys. I mean, you do a great job. The only thing might be, I think Councilman Newhouse mentioned, is there something about, I think the last comment you made, well, it's not important, but anyway. So all I'm going to say is I have no problem. I'm completely supportive of the 20-year framework, because it takes that much. It's a big job. I just want to make sure we don't miss whatever other things are happening that's going to be affecting your transportation plan as you see for the whole city, because there are other things you may be missing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Lee. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Appreciate you being here. John, it's always good to have you in these meetings, just so that we're on top of our financial strategy and we can see how it impacts just about everything we do. Andrew, Eric, Molly, and your team, appreciate it. Our Vice Chair McGill, thank you for being here, and thanks in advance for all the hard work that you and the commission will do as we continue your work on the update to the TFP. Appreciate all the effort that the Transportation Commission puts into its work and the thoughtful approach that the commission used to compile its list of TFP candidate projects. I like that the commission included in the project list projects that are drawn obviously from the current TFP, as was mentioned, Bike Bellevue, and then from the list of intersections that our recent comp plan update identified as not meeting the demand that we know is needed. It strikes me that this TFP update is all the more important due to the work we have recently completed in Wilburton, what's ahead in Bell Red, recent work on middle housing, and the future growth all around the city. The growth that is coming to our city also highlights the need, thankfully, and you're on, the need to update our transportation impact fee program. The intentional, thoughtful approach we are taking to growth requires that we take the same intentional, thoughtful approach to ensuring that our transportation system has the necessary funds to support new and existing residents, workers, and visitors. The Transportation Impact Fee Program is a critical source of revenue and should be optimized to meet our current and emerging needs. Thanks for doing this important work. Thank you, too, for all of the public outreach and stakeholder engagement. I'm sure that future engagement efforts will include the wide range of stakeholders that have expertise in the wide range of transportation projects under consideration. I'm glad that we have built out the arterial road network in Bellevue, and especially in the Bellred area, as it's becoming a main focus. That was proactive on the city's part in anticipation of light rail. And while we definitely need to make additional transportation improvements in Bellred, I want to encourage us to be flexible with housing suppliers and prioritize the kinds of transportation options that work for folks who live in a TOD neighborhood. Clearly, Bellevue is a growing city, and we are going to need to keep investing in transportation and mobility. And I think to do so, we are very likely going to need to look at new revenues to meet our capacity and safety goals. I believe we need to explore additional options for transportation revenues as a part of our funding planning for next year. I think it could include options, as have been mentioned, like a transportation benefit district, the possibility of a second or replacement levy, and other creative solutions to keep investing in our whole mobility network. As has been heard and my colleagues have expressed, I'm all for extending the TFP timeframe to 20 years. And interested in moving this forward. Appreciate the comments I've heard so far. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Councilmember Bargava?
Yeah, thank you. Again, just very briefly, want to say thank you to you all, Director, Eric, John, of course, for all the financial insights, and then the great work the Transportation Commission continues to do. Spent 5 years in the Planning Commission, just rolls off the tongue. Sorry. Okay. So Vice Chair McGill, thank you. Let me start by just saying I am supportive of the extension from 12 to 20 years. I think it gives us the flexibility need. We also sort of address the unpredictability in revenue streams that we have and the funding sources. So I think overall, I think that's the right decision. I'm supportive. I also really appreciate the move, sort of a +1 on the maintenance monies being moved further up in the waterfall, which I think is really important. So supportive of that. I want to say that through the comp plan update that we've just done, we have started the process of coordinating land use and transit infrastructure in a meaningful way. This helps ensure that zoning near, light rail, transit stations, frequently used transit corridors continue to support compact, walkable, and mixed-use development. I think that's the direction we want to go. So aligned with that general sentiment and sort of approach, I am supportive of including multimodal capital projects as much as possible in the plan that you put forth. I would encourage us to consider including, so for example, what the letter from Complete Streets called out, the projects for transit. Even if they're not entirely prioritized, it is important to include. Beyond just signaling, it gives us an opportunity to make sure that we are ready should the funds be available and should the opportunity arise or things change from Metro. And so without waiting for an additional planning cycle to occur, so I would encourage that and want that to happen. A few other follow-up questions quickly. A lot of great questions already. So, advantage of going late in this process is you get the benefit of lots of great, and the input was really fantastic. I do appreciate sort of building on council members, some of the various point. It was really insightful that the inclusion of the Grand Connection in the TFP does drive strategic outcomes. And sort of building on that, I want to sort of reiterate that including transit-oriented projects in the TFP similarly may allow us to demonstrate not just the local commitment that I was talking about, but probably improve our chances and competitive funding programs. Also, maybe Washington State or U.S. Department of Transportation may require projects to have regional sort of transportation plans to be considered, and that also improves that outcome or the chances for us as a city. So I think in general, based on some of those, I would encourage us to do that. Just a couple of really quick questions for me, because a lot of ground has been covered. The MIP tool that was described, specific to that, talking about comparing sort of within modes, projects within a singular mode, vehicular to vehicular and bike to bike and so on. How does that model, and this is just my lack of understanding, so it's more an educational question first, make sure that we're identifying the most crucial gaps across modes and they're not getting left by the wayside or getting under prioritized because we're taking this approach?
Well, as mentioned before, we do have various programs currently in the CIP. And I think one of the issues that we're going to have to do when we develop a new CIP that's more portfolio-based is to prioritize within the different programs that deal with bike or ped or roadway capacity. And then also moving into scoping a transportation master plan would go a long way to do that as well. We do have prioritization of different programs, but what we don't have, and that we're trying to get from our consultant when we get on board, is the consolidation of those programs so that we will know.
Okay, definitely looking forward to that because, it feels sort of in a silo a little bit otherwise to me from the way, it may not be, but I think that consolidated view across programs would be really, really helpful. So that's what the consultant's going to come and do. So that's great. Sort of in the same lines, very quickly, like an example that came up, and I think it was mentioned that the Spring to 120th Street connection is sort of missing. Now, based on that, is that a vital transit connection, bike connection, or where would that stack, and what would be the impact of that not happening on the different modes, for example, just to bring to life this interconnected nature of our work?
I mean, I do view it as being a really critical connection that we are definitely going to have to do. And it's both a vehicular connectivity project, but also a multimodal one as well for bike and ped. So it's an important project. We can't lose sight of it.
Yeah. And so sort of thinking out of the box a little bit, have we considered breaking those modes apart and funding parts of it so that we make progress?
It is the type of project that it's a bridge. So it's really difficult to phase. You really can't phase it. And it's relatively expensive. It's about $80 million project.
I see. Okay, just thinking maybe. Okay. Last thing for me, I do appreciate the sort of fiscally conservative approach, John, that you laid out in terms of the transportation impact fee, and I think it's $49 odd million that you project, and it's based on sort of our current velocity of development. And I'm sure those scenarios have been done, if the process or the development's velocity was to change, how much would we generate in a more optimistic development world view?
Do you have the historical data?
Well, I think we're projecting in the something between 1 and 2 million right now. There's been periods during economic booms where we were collecting well over 5 million, probably averaging closer to 5-6 million. I think that's what was even budgeted in prior capital investment programs. But then we had spike years with, in excess of 10 million, but that's just kind of depends on what comes in the door.
It's feasible to imagine a world in 3 to 5 years, potentially, I don't know, that we would make up the deficit just based on changes in our velocity of development.
Right, and then the TFP gets updated about every 2 years, and that'd be a good place to increase the projection going forward.
Okay, super helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Bargava. I just want to also, again, thank you all for a great job identifying the priorities, engaging the community, and aligning with our comprehensive plan. Hopefully, this foundation ensures Bellevue is in the right track. As Councilmember Bargava mentioned, being the last is great because literally all of my questions have been asked. Very sad that we don't have that much budget. Hopefully our economy changes and we are going to be more creative to make additional revenue. I just wanted to emphasize a comment that the mayor mentioned, not just today, but also mayor mentioned about our bike ped after we had our grand connection. I think Mayor, I'm paraphrasing, mentioned they come out of the Grand Connection with a scooter or bike, and then what? The same thing when we were talking about the scooters session, Mayor also brought that up. Hey, the scooters, we are going to bring that back, pilot, whatever, but do we have enough infrastructure? I think it's very important that we prioritize. I think we should prioritize fully connected, protected network for all mode of transportation. Like, to address traffic and transportation, there are two methods, and I have been saying that. First, we should make the existing cars and buses move more efficient, investing in our roads, but also we should reduce them by providing the modal of transportation and making people bike and walk or use scooters more. One person in the audience talked about the percentage of allocation. I think also Councilwoman Neuenhaus brought that up. I also wanted to know about that, but I wanted to brought two things to our attention. First, I think, is the concept of chicken or eggs. If we don't have a safe, connected network of bike ped, then we cannot really see how many people are using that. Assume we know if we had this road that we don't have yet, improve the traffic, but we cannot say because we don't have it and no one using it, so we don't have any data because there is none. I think that's the first comment I wanted to talk about when we talk about this percentage. The second one is, if we even agree that we should match the percentage of our budget, matching the percentage of people who are using bike, I think we should look at the historical investment we have done since the Bellevue become incorporated. And then I agree, just match 1% or whatever the comment was to our bike and pedestrian infrastructure. We cannot just say from this moment moving forward, let's just see what is the percentage of investment and match that by the percentage of user of each modal of transportation. So I would love to see the allocation at some point when you have your consultant and have done all of those work with the Transportation Commission. Just wanted to brought that to topic. Do we have a motion? Oh, sorry. Yes, Councilman Miller.
Forgive me.
Yes, please.
But I have two questions.
Absolutely, Councilman Miller, please.
One is, I agree with what you said. I was going to ask that same question, but I forgot. That's why I said whatever.
The percentage allocation, very important question.
So I agree with you. It's good to know the percentage so that we can actually talk about it in a meaningful way. Thank you. Good answer. The question is for you. You mentioned about environmental review. Can you explain that a little bit? What is the purpose of that? What information are we going to get that may add some input to your recommendation?
Eric can provide a little bit more detail, but after this, we move forward with modeling everything that is in the TFP and going through a SEPA environmental review as well. So we will be doing that work. Eric, do you have anything to add?
That's the primary main point is the traffic modeling. You know, we used to do a full environmental impact statement, but that was before we did one associated with our comprehensive plan update. So that took care of the look at the growth forecast, and that was a big part of what our transportation facility plan environmental work did. But now we can basically adopt that by reference and simply fill out a SEPA checklist and then kind of conduct the modeling on this network that's included in this preliminary project list and kind of reevaluate with what's going to be on the ground by 2044, which was the second map we showed, and what that will mean to the transportation system for each mode.
Will the SEPA result be the same as the assumption that we are making to decide on the TFP needs? Or what? So what would that do? Is it to confirm what the work that you have been doing?
It'll show the impacts of what the amount of transportation in the TFP has when we model it based on the horizon year.
What would that do?
What was that?
What would that do?
it'll identify areas that we will need to be focusing in on in terms of new projects or trying to find revenue for.
Okay, but that's part of the TFP though.
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
part of this.
So you're just
TFP.
going to make some better refined focus on what project you do first and prioritize some of the stuff, right?
Is that?
It'll take a new look based on this revenue forecast. It'll compare, it'll kind of remodel this network in comparison to what the comprehensive plan land use growth forecast entailed. And, you know, it did some transportation modeling that was included, identified the intersections that are expected to not meet target. And now with this network, we'll take another look at that and share the results with the commission, council ultimately. And does this TFP help us get to resolving those problems? Well, we know we're gonna have the financial concerns that we've talked about to get some of those projects funded, but at least we'll know where the forecast problems are.
Okay, so you might make some changes, or we may have an opportunity to consider some changes.
I think it will identify the areas that we need to be focusing on moving forward in order for the transportation system to function.
Okay, all right. So
Thank you so much, Councilmember Lee.
Thank you.
It seems Councilmember Bargava has another comment.
Yeah, just a very quick one is that we did talk about potentially including projects to 303 to 309 about transit. So if we are about to make a motion, would that be possible to include that as a additional set of projects in the motion that we now make?
So I'm going to ask our city council, our city manager, city council. Councilmember Newhouse make the first motion, then Councilmember Bargava make an amended motion. How are we doing this? Charmaine?
This is technically just direction to staff, so we don't need to be as formal, as long as there's agreement amongst the council of what you're directing staff to do.
So do we have agreement among ourselves? Can you, Councilmember Bargava, can you repeat what you just said?
Including projects 303 to 309 that were outlined in the letter that we received from Complete Streets Bellevue in the TFP.
Mayor, Councilmember Sumadeveria, your thoughts, and then people in the room thoughts?
Can I get staff's feedback on that recommendation?
As I said before, it really isn't going to make a difference either way. If you put it in, it's not going to have funding associated with it. It'll be there. But there are other places that you can identify support for transit reliability studies, basically, is what they are. And that could be that transportation master plan that we're looking at doing. So I would say staff is neutral on it.
Councilmember Sumadeveria?
I don't have any opinion on this one, so.
So what is our direction? Councilmember Hamilton, what are your thoughts on? You,
I think if staff is neutral, I'm neutral, so fine by me.
Councilmember Lee? Mayor, are you also aligned with the staff that you are neutral, therefore adding it doesn't bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me at all.
Councilmember Newhouse?
Yeah, I had that question addressed early on, so I think it's not necessary to add that to the motion.
So we just add them because we all agreed, but we don't add it to the motion?
We don't add it to the motion.
Great, that's a direction. Councilmember Newhouse, can we have the motion, please?
I move to direct the Transportation Commission and staff to proceed with the TFP process, including the SEPA checklist and impact fee program report based on the project list included with the Transportation Commission transmittal memo, and prepare a revision to the city code to extend the TFP timeframe to 20 years.
Second.
Great, it has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Everyone said aye. Thank you so much. It is 8:01. We will have 9 minutes break till 8:10.
Thank you.
Thank you.